Alaska. It's America's last frontier, and it's one of the great homes for wilderness on our planet. 50 years ago, the United States passed the Wilderness Act, which defined congressional wilderness as an area where the earth and its community of life are untrammeled by man. For many, the law and its legacy remain a mystery. But today, we'll take on a journey through Alaska, and if we're lucky, we might even discover the
hold on a
meaning
second.
of what.
I love these old nature films, but we're gonna try something a little different. All right, that's better. So yeah, that guy on the screen is me. My name is Ben, and I'm a wildlife filmmaker. Like my distinguished friend said, 2014 marks the 50th anniversary of a law called the Wilderness Act, which helped to preserve some of the wildest places in North America. I've been lucky enough to travel and film in a bunch of these places, but every time I come back from a trip, I find it hard to share how meaningful the experience was. Wilderness is part of who I am, but why do I feel called to it? How do we define it? And why is it important today? To answer these questions, I've left my home in Austin, Texas, to head to the Tongass National Forest of Alaska. I'll be teaming up with the Forest Service there to gain access to 5 of the most remote areas in the state. We'll be traveling by boat, plane, kayak, and foot to see the best wilderness has to offer. And more importantly, I'll get to meet some of the people who know these areas best and get their take on what wilderness means for us all. The expedition starts today, so grab a paddle and your hiking boots, and don't forget your bear spray, because this is about to be the trip of a lifetime. My journey starts in the town of Ketchikan at the southern tip of Alaska. It's a short flight from Seattle, but its backyard beats any city park. I'm heading down to the docks to meet with Jacob Hoffman, a wilderness ranger with the Forest Service. He works as a kind of caretaker for wildlands, and he's agreed to take me out to one of the crown jewels of Alaska.
Ketchikan is right here, and today we're going to go out to Misty Fjords, a wilderness area.
Yeah, that'll be cool. How long do you think we'll be flying, just throughout the day?
We'll be out for about 4 hours before we get dropped off at Big Goat Lake here.
My main mission for this whole trip is to explore why wilderness is important today. And I guess that starts by getting out there. Like most people, I'm used to traveling through the outdoors on foot or even in a boat. But Jacob wants to take me to Misty Fjords in a plane smaller than most minivans. I've got to say, it's a little daunting. But as we take off, it starts to make a lot of sense.
I brought you to Misty Fjords and specifically to fly into it because I think it is the perfect introduction to the Tongass National Forest. On the Tongass, there's 19 individual wilderness areas. Misty Fjords wilderness area is actually the largest managed by the Forest Service.
Looking out the window, I'm actually wondering if Jacob meant the Forest Service was managing Middle Earth. This place is epic, and as far as I can see, it's wild. Misty Fjords Wilderness and the other areas I'll be visiting on my trip are clearly a special kind of wild. It's not just a vague term. It has an actual definition, which Congress established with the Wilderness Act 50 years ago. What that is, though, and why it's important, is a big part of what Jacob's going to try to show me today.
So we're at Big Goat Lake in Misty Fjords National Monument Wilderness. And today I'm going to take you up to an alpine ridge because the best being out there and experiencing the wilderness firsthand, being in the woods, up on a ridge, slogging through a muskeg. That's really the experience and the challenge of wilderness. Wherever you want, you can just head up. And we'll meet up it'll open up here. So you don't have to come all the way right here necessarily. We're just going uphill.
When an Alaskan tells you you're just going uphill, you're probably in for a pretty brutal hike. And sure enough, within 20 minutes, my legs are on fire.
Just hiked about 2,500 feet up to the ridge up at about 4,200 feet. Horizontal distance, we traveled about 1.5 miles. And it's, yeah, that's all. So, and we paid for it. It was a bushwhack.
It's crazy to think that in today's world, there's a place with no roads and little to no trails. It can make it tough, but it also adds this real sense of adventure to these wilderness areas.
Passage of the Wilderness Act back in 1964, there was a acknowledgement that the lands, and especially public lands, were being developed and modified, and that at the current rate, there would be no more wild places. And they placed a value on that and passed this law, which preserves it for future generations.
Why did we do this?
Well, I wanted you to see the wilderness and experience some of the challenge that it has to offer, and bushwhacking your way up the side of the ridge here, and to get up on top and see this landscape that we have here. Essentially, everything we're seeing from here is wilderness as part of Misty.
The plane ride today was awesome, but standing here, it's more than a view. There's something about actually being in wilderness and taking the effort to get there. It's just incredible.
We just saw ptarmigan just come out of the bushes here, and it's really, we are visitors. So, and that's another part of the Wilderness Act too, is that you're basically man as a visitor and does not remain.
The next day, weather moved in, and my time with Jacob was cut short. He gave me a taste of true Alaskan hiking, and a sense of the real definition of wilderness. A place with few or no trails, where man's just a visitor. But still, I want to explore the other side of its meaning. How do I explain the feeling of being in these places? The calling I have? I'm not sure what to expect from the next part of my trip, but if all goes well, I'll be hitching a ride with the wind.
We've been sailing in Southeast Alaska now for about 5 years. Before that, we were located up in Prince William Sound. And so we just really fell in love with the coast of Alaska. I'm from Colorado. It was completely foreign when I moved up here, just out of college. And I said, I got to get out on the water. And I started with sea kayaking, and then got into boating, and then got into sailing. And it all kind of happened and culminated into this as a business.
That's Captain Blaine Anderson, and this is his sailboat, the Bob. Blaine lives on the Bob year-round with his wife Monique and his dog Chance, and they take people from all over the world on tours of the Alaskan coastline. For Blaine, finding this place was a turning point in his life, and he never looked back. Wilderness became his livelihood.
Yeah, this is my stomping ground. We do about 3 to 4 trips a year in this area. We also like this whole icy strait just because the possibility of seeing whales.
This place changed Blaine's life forever, and it actually changed mine too. 7 years ago, I made my first trip to Alaska, and I got a chance to visit West Ketchikan. It's the place that introduced me to wilderness areas, and is one of the big reasons I'm a wildlife cameraman today. The next morning, Blaine and I head over to shore to check it out. I'm looking forward to visiting some of my favorite places, which is good because Blaine's pushing me to get out and explore.
There's so many hands-off vacations out there, I think, in Alaska. This one really tends to be really hands-on and active. We like to get people involved in sailing. We like to put them in a kayak and have them go explore around and see the place, get a little deeper connection, I guess.
In wilderness areas like this, it seems like there are endless places to explore. But today, Blaine points out a stream on the map and suggests I check it out. It's August, the perfect time to capture one of the natural wonders of the Tongass. Seeing something as beautiful as this reminds me of a story I heard on my first trip here, about how West Chichagof became a wilderness in the first place. It turns out this whole area was threatened in the mid-1900s, until a small group of people in the nearby town of Sitka fought to preserve it. They formed the Sitka Conservation Society and made this area the first citizen-proposed wilderness in Alaska. A big reason why they were successful is they did what Blaine and Monique do today: bring in visitors from across the U.S. to this coastline, just to share how special it is.
There's a magic in the air when dusk settles down. Sometimes it's clear and you can see the stars. You'll hear the breathing of sea lions as they go by the boat when you're at anchor. If you're lucky, you might hear some whales that blow by. They may have seen pictures of a humpback whale or a picture of a bear, but if they're actually able to see it in person, they really feel that they're getting a very special experience.
I've had people, tears streaming down their face. They're blown away. They're sailing in Alaska, the places that they've always heard of, always dreamed of, but never knew that that would be a possibility in their life. They knew they were coming to Alaska, but they really often don't know what to expect. It's fun. It's really fun.
Being out here with Blaine and Monique makes me realize that one value of wilderness is actually connecting with other people. These places draw us out and bring us together. There's something powerful about that, and I think it's that connection that helped save this wilderness in the first place, and how people like Blaine and Monique are keeping it protected today.
In wilderness, sometimes man is not the top of the food chain. Here, the great brown bear roams from mountaintop to estuary, and every day can be a fight for survival.
Okay, dude seriously needs to stop butting in here. So anyways, this is the Kootznoe Wilderness, and bears are the reason I'm so pumped to be here. Aside from all the conceptual stuff, wild animals are something I absolutely love, and bears are one of the main reasons why I chose the Tongass as a place to travel to. For me, there's nothing quite like watching a bear get his breakfast, do a little boxing, or even a belly flop. And this wilderness is one of the best places in the world to see them do it. It's always good to have a guide with you when you're with wild animals. And when it comes to these bears, no one's better than Don McDougall. He's been a seasonal wilderness ranger here on the island for years. He even knows some of them by name.
We're here at Pat Creek. It's evening, sun's starting to go down over the horizon. We got a couple of sows out, sow with 2 cubs, 2 young spring cubs, and a sow with 1 spring cub, a small adolescent male just past those guys, and another older adult female that just went up the creek.
Are there usually this many bears?
It's one of the highest densities bears anywhere in the world. 1,600 square mile island, somewhere between 1 and 1.2 bears per square mile, so anywhere between probably 1,500 and 1,700 bears. Probably a lot of it has to do with the fact that there's a little bit of development, and this has been preserved over the years, and nobody's messed with the habitat, so they can thrive here.
As a wildlife cameraman, whenever I'm out on assignment, I'm always given a shot list, a series of behaviors I need to capture in the amount of time I'm given. But here, I'm capturing moments I never even think to look for. And it's a great feeling. There's something to be said for being in a place like this without expectations, or just something to look for. I'm just letting the bears do what they do, and getting to observe. I mentioned this to Don, and he comes up with an idea for where we'll go next. The only issue is, this time, I don't know where he's taking me. The next morning we rise early and take off in the boat. The bear action has been unbelievable, and leaving that goes against everything I know as a wildlife filmmaker. I'm not sure what Don has planned, but I hope it's worth it.
Hey, bear. Hey, bear.
So we got a heavy thimbleberry thicket, and then we got heavy alder cover. So if you're looking at this from the beach, it looks pretty foreboding. And then when you step inside the canopy, you see a whole different world. One of the reasons I took you here was because of this tree that we see right in front of us. It's just an amazing specimen, and it's so different from everything else. And it's just huge and ancient. And
how old are these trees?
Well, they're probably pretty ancient old growth forest. I would say, several hundred to maybe 1,000 years old. I'm up.
Yeah.
Woo! Woo! Yeah, every time I look at it, I just am awed by just the structure of it and the size, and it's almost leaves you speechless the first time you see it. Sometimes we get focused on the really big things, the really cool big guys, the bears, because, they're really neat animals, and it's great to see them fish and play and all of that stuff. But there's a whole lot more life going on around there too. There's sort of a relationship that goes back and forth. The bears eat the fish, they drag the carcasses into the surrounding area around the creeks. The nutrients from the fish go back into the soil. It feeds the trees get bigger. I think it's just really important to have places like this where we can always have that preserved forever.
For Don, wilderness is more than an iconic photo. It's a beautifully connected ecosystem, and really, a place of discovery. I can sometimes think of a day out here as another day at the office, but this is such an amazing reminder that if we keep our eyes and ears open, wilderness has so much to show us and teach us. Before I leave Kuusnuu, I'm heading to the other side of the island, to the native village of Angoon. It has a long, long history, and it's completely surrounded by congressional wilderness, which is exactly why I've come.
My name is Donald Frank. We're in the land of my father's people, Angoon, Killisnoo. At the time of the small ice age, when the ice was receding, our people came to the shoreline. I believe the same time as the brown bears came to the shoreline. Our people strongly believed in keeping Admiralty Island as a wilderness, where they went to lobby and to preserve Admiralty Island in its natural state, not to log it off, but to keep it as it was for thousands of generations. Because this is where we live. This is our home.
Being in a place like this with so much history makes me realize that I've always approached the wild as an observer, as an outsider. For some people in Alaska, living off the land is just their way of life, and the wilderness allows for that.
My name's Roger Williams. I've been in Angoon, I believe, about 25 years. I moved out of Yakutat, actually met my wife in Juneau, and we had our kids here in Angoon.
Roger was nice enough to bring me out halibut fishing with him, which he does almost every day. So when he starts to pull up the line, I ask him what he'll do if he catches one.
Right now, I'd probably keep them or barter for gas so I can keep coming out here, so I can keep doing what I'm doing. Either going fishing or going hunting.
One halibut can go a long way out here, but unfortunately, Roger is going home empty-handed today.
That's a workout. Like if I got something today, more than my share, I would share with some of the people over here in Angoon. They really enjoy it. And it provides for my family.
Roger's one of the nicest guys I've ever met, and I don't know if he thinks of himself as a teacher, but in a way, both he and Donald, and Don too, have shown me that wilderness can mean different things for different people. It can be a vacation, a place for adventure, a sanctuary for plants and animals, or simply a way of life. I'm realizing the meaning of wild may not be something one person can pinpoint, but what I can try to figure out is what it means to me.
So we're here in Holcomb Bay, which is between basically the meeting point for Endicott Arm and Tracy Arm, looking at a rainforest that is a few hundred years old and seeing an iceberg that's just calved off a tidewater glacier. Like, that frame is something that is rapidly departing on the planet. So we're gonna go to a place that's been, glacially carved out over many millennia, and there's a few really, really spectacular features in these fjords. Like I mentioned, the tidewater glaciers, and one of the most spectacular is a place called Fjord's Terror, and that's our goal for the next couple days, to go in there and explore.
I've just arrived in Tracy Arm Fjord's Terror Wilderness, where I met lead wilderness ranger Solon Jensen. He's a lifelong Alaskan, a kayak guide, and somewhat of a wilderness guru. He wasted no time getting me into a kayak and paddling around some icebergs nearby. I'm not sure if my camera insurance covers capsizing, but Solon reminds me that sometimes you just gotta let go and have some fun.
Yeah, that is just wicked. It's like snow camo. It's like a snow leopard. It's like a zebra, if it was a polar zebra.
Seeing these icebergs up close is incredible, but hopefully we're going to spend the afternoon watching their source. We're heading to the Dawes Glacier, and as a filmmaker, photographer, or just a general traveler, glaciers are pretty much on everyone's bucket list. But I feel something special about this moment. We're coming to the end of the expedition, and I'm realizing that I may be documenting something that may not be there for the next generation.
That's insane.
The next morning, we head into Fjord's Terror. I'm still in awe from the glacier and from everything around me. I'm filming, but my mind and my words are somewhere else.
people witness extraordinary things, they respond in all kinds of different ways. And as we were entering Forge Terror, everyone got really quiet. And you can tell all of our senses of observation and awareness just get heightened completely, because you realize you're in a place that's almost uncanny with how beautiful it is.
Solon tells me that sometimes when you're traveling through the natural world, you just have an instinct to continue around the next corner. That the wild calls you to wander and to be something more.
I think one of the things that the Wilderness Act asks of us is humility in the world, in the face of the natural world. And, you know, coming to a place like this, beholding the grandeur, just the sheer size, it's incredible on a level that gives you pause and reflection, just, you know, for your place in the universe, you know, human beings' place in the natural scheme of things.
I'm headed to the last stop on my trip, and for the first time, I don't have a guide. I'm alone here in the Ketchikan wilderness, and I'm surrounded by a landscape so old and grand that it makes human history seem like a blink in comparison. Solon's right. I do feel humbled. Not just by this place, but by what I set out to do on this trip. What I've learned from everyone is that the Wilderness Act defines these places, but in a way that allows us to discover how we connect with it. Ultimately, there's no single meaning. For me, it's the element of the unknown. Being in the fog, not knowing what's around that next bend. It's what drives me and keeps me coming back to these places again and again. Edward Abbey once said, "The idea of wilderness needs no defense. It only needs defenders." We all need to get out into the wilds, embrace the experience, and figure out how wilderness relates to our own lives. That's the only way that these places will remain loved and protected, so the next generation can have their chance to discover the meaning of wild.